Hello everyone, and welcome to another video on how the body works. This week we have been exploring the nose and how we smell things. So first, let's talk about how we can smell. So the first thing we need to know about is called particles. So particles are tiny little elements inside of air that are picked up by something that we smell. So another word would be molecules. So the molecules from this flower are sent through the air and are picked up by our nose, and our nose is able to sense those particles and molecules and tell us what something smells like. Certain objects don't give off as many particles or molecules as others. So for an example, a plastic chair or a plastic table really wouldn't give off very many particles or molecules into the air for us to smell, and so they don't smell. But a rose, a flower, food, those things give off a lot of particles into the air, our molecules in the air that we can sense with our smell. Another important thing is those particles and molecules can enter into your nose, and not only do we smell them, but they can get into our actual body and system. And this is also how viruses are spread. So they would enter also, those small molecules from someone else's sneeze or cough can enter into your nose, and they don't necessarily have a smell, but they can be carried by the air and go into your body, and that's often how we can get sick. That's why our face masks should cover our noses, and when we sneeze, we should cover those, because that releases a bunch of things into the air. Also, certain plants or certain animals can release molecules or particles, and they can go into our sinuses, and if we are allergic to those things like cats or pollen, then it can start an allergic reaction inside of our nose, cause us to produce more mucus, more snot, and our nose gets runny, our eyes get runny, and this is how allergies can also affect us through our nose, the particles in the air. So let's take a look at the parts of the nose that we want to highlight here. So we can see that air will come through our nostril here. Air goes into the nasal cavity through the nostril, as well as any particles that are in that air goes into the nasal cavity. And then the next most important part of the sense of smell will be up here, the olfactory bulb system. You can see it's got little nerves and sensors that go down into the nasal cavity so that the air that is breathed in and the particles that are breathed into your nasal cavity can be sensed, and the olfactory bulb sends that message to the brain to let you know what you are smelling. If we get a more detailed model, again, the air is coming up through the nostril into the nasal cavity, and we have again the olfactory bulb is here with its sensors that go down. But we can see some other things on this diagram, such as here's where our lip would be, and our teeth and our tongue is here, and you can actually press up on this hard palate, it's called sometimes, and you can feel it sometimes inside of your nose. The front of your nose is cartilage. We can see that right here. The yellow is cartilage. And also we do have the small bone right here that can be broken close to the arch of, or I guess the bridge of your nose it's called. And you have a sinus cavity here. Sometimes we can get headaches here if this is swollen or filled with fluid. We have another sinus back behind that can get affected. These are the things that if you have allergies or headaches or any kind of drainage or swelling in your nose or nasal area, it can affect your sinuses. And back here we have your tonsil. and that can get big and inflamed as well. It's supposed to help clear out any infections or anything that shouldn't belong in your nose. It's supposed to help clean it out, but sometimes it can get very swollen and affect how you breathe, and it may cause you to snore because it gets in the way of your breathing area. All right. So let's look a little closer here at the olfactory. We have the olfactory nerve that stretches to the brain up here. And we also have the olfactory bulb, this bulb-like figure right here. And then you've got the nerve bundles that stretch down into your nasal cavity. And whenever you breathe in, those things are sensed by those nerve bundles, sent up to the bulb, and the bulb sends it through the olfactory nerve to your brain, and this is how we smell. Something really interesting, if you smell something for long enough, your nerves that are here, these olfactory nerves, can become desensitized, meaning they're no longer sensitive to the smell. So instead of, if you go into a house that has a lot of flower smells, at first when you walk in, you'll smell it. And then the longer you stay inside of that house, the less and less your nerves will pick up that smell. It becomes used to it, and it searches for newer smells. Sometimes you can see a commercial that says if you become nose blind to something, it's because your nose has smelt it long enough that it no longer registers those new smells. All right, so now it's time for us to draw a model of the nose after we've talked about all of its parts. And the first thing I think we should do is to draw basically a side profile of the nose. Okay, and it'll come up like this. And I'm going to add a couple lips, not too deep in there, but we can see the side profile of the nose. The next thing that we will draw is the nasal cavity. All right, so it comes up from the nostril up, and it will go back down just like into the trachea, which we will label later. And there we go. So we've got our nasal cavity. So I'm going to go ahead and label that here, nasal cavity. And I will also label nostril. All right, this is the hole that all of the air goes into. All right. The next thing that we will draw is going to be the olfactory system. So I'm going to go ahead and draw the bulb up here above the nasal cavity. And then I want to draw the bundles, the nerves that come down to sense smell. All right. There we go. Kind of looks like a little creepy bug up there. But this is the olfactory, and I'm going to just label it olfactory system because it includes the bulb, the nerve, the endings, the bundles, all of it. All right. And I will also label here the trachea because this is important for us to know that the airflow comes into the nose and goes down the trachea into our lungs. Now the last kind of fun thing we get to draw is this lovely gooey slime that covers the nasal cavity, otherwise known as snot. But I am going to label it, I'm going to draw a little booger in there too, the mucous membrane, M-U-C-S, membrane. All right, mucous membrane, there it is. And along with the mucous membrane, I've also drawn a little particle that got stuck in the mucous membrane, and it's been coated and coated and coated and coated and coated so that it won't go into my lungs. And when that process happens, it creates a booger. or otherwise known as a nose trophy, right? Dun, 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 dun. And so that is when a particle gets lodged into the mucous membrane, which is what it's supposed to do. And it coats it so much so that it will not pass through into your lungs. You don't want those particles going into your lungs or making you sick. So the mucous membrane is here ready to catch all of those unwanted particles. So here we have your nose, and we've got the nostril. We have the nasal cavity, that's 2, mucous membrane 3, olfactory is 4, trachea is 5, and a booger is 6. The last thing I want you to write on this page somewhere are the 3 things that your nose does do for the air that goes in it. So I'm going to put mine up in the top. There are 3 things that it does. It warms. Okay, it actually will warm the air as it goes in so that you don't breathe in cold air. It moistens, and we know this word from our spelling list. It helps to moisturize the air. If the air is really dry, it can add a little moisture as it goes into our lungs, which is helpful. And then it filters. To filter means to take out all of the bad as it goes in. So it will filter out these little things, these little nose trophies. It'll filter out any bad things so that we won't catch and get sick. All right, so here's your model. You have 6 things to label, plus the 3 things that the nose does to air as it enters the body.